breaking news.
Hello, I'm Lynda Kincaid. We've got some breaking news just in. We're getting reports of dozens of shots fired during a raid in a Brussels suburb. CNN International Diplomatic Editor Nic Robertson joins me now from London. Nick, what are you learning?
Well, we're looking at those pictures of very heavily armed and protected police or special forces troops going in to an area that we understand is in Brussels, possibly the Molenbeek neighbourhood. What we have learned now from the prosecutor in Belgium is that two people have been arrested. It's not clear if these reported shots fired in connection with their arrest, but this is what we're learning. Two people arrested. Now, what we're not clear about at the moment is who they are. Are they? The immediate question becomes the two people that went on the run after the shootout with the police on Tuesday earlier this week, left 4 police injured and 1 man dead, a terror suspect dead, shot by a police sniper. So who are those two people that have been arrested? But this is developing and breaking news in Belgium right now. And obviously the suspicion had been because one of the most wanted man in Europe, one of those who was involved in the Paris terror attack, Salah Abdelslam, his fingerprint had been found on that apartment on Tuesday during that or after that raid. The 2 men then ran away. Police or the prosecutor had said that Salah Abdelslam could have been one of the men in that building when it was raided. Not clear. Implications are he could have been one of those 2 men who ran away. 2 men have been arrested today, and we're waiting to get more information so we can join the dots up, if you will, at the moment, Lynda.
And Nick, we believe this is happening in the area of Molenbeek. Can you give us a sense of this area? I understand, obviously, it's known for developing, I guess, and helping to create a lot of extremist views.
It's an area in Brussels that has a high immigrant population, and it's an area where police have had a number of raids and arrests since the Paris terror attacks. It's where a number of the suspects, they've arrested 11 people in connection with the Paris terror attacks, and obviously had many, many more raids. So it's a neighbourhood that's been the subject of extreme focus and attention by the authorities because they believe in this neighbourhood. People have been able to either go to ground. It's where some of the networks connected to ISIS in Syria and Iraq are located. People have gone from this neighborhood to join ISIS in Syria and Iraq. And the leads from the French, from the investigation into the Paris terror attacks lead back to Molenbeek. It is by no means the only neighborhood in Belgium or in Brussels that the police have put scrutiny on, but it is one that keeps coming up time and again. And the reason that is generally perceived for that, this is a community that has a high percentage of immigrant population, and within that population, this is where some of those terror attackers and planners have gone to hide out.
And there is no doubt, Nick, that their key target is, of course, Europe's most wanted man, Salah Abdelslam, a key figure in the Paris attacks. Just remind our viewers what role he played in those attacks.
Well, he was picked up on CCTV camera in the days ahead of the attack, driving a vehicle that was involved in the attacks from Belgium to Paris. He was believed to have taken some of the attackers there. His brother was one of the attackers. He and his brother rented 2 vehicles that were used in those attacks. So a key figure in planning, preparing and helping carry out the attacks. His brother was one of the gunmen who later, after trying to shoot and kill people, detonated his suicide vest. And a suicide vest with Salah Abdelslam's DNA was found near the scene of one of the attacks. And it is believed that that he potentially was going to be one of those attackers, but for whatever reason didn't attack that night. Later on in the night, in the middle of the night, calls up friends in Belgium to come and pick him up from Paris. They drive down, pick him up. They get stopped by police just before they cross the border back into Belgium. At the police checkpoint there, the police didn't know Salah Abdelslam had been involved in the Paris attacking. So they didn't hold him and his two friends up. He was allowed to continue and drive on. But within minutes, the police did get details that that was a man that they were looking for. So he slipped through the net there. Not long after the international terror arrest was placed for him, a watch was placed for him at all the borders in Europe. But then he just disappeared, in essence. Disappeared for the last few months, and this fingerprint found, we now find out, fingerprint found on Tuesday. And of course the key question is now, was he one of those two men arrested just now this afternoon in Molenbeek, or if not, are these two men able to lead the police to where he might be?
And the raid, the pictures that we're looking at now, we can see obviously the police heavily armed and in riot gear. Just give us a sense of how dangerous Abdelslam is.
When the police raided the premises where his fingerprint was found earlier in the week, they weren't expecting to get, to get an armed response. Although the police officers had helmets, they had bulletproof flak jackets on, and they had weapons, they were confronted by a barrage of fire from an automatic weapon, a Kalashnikov, a battlefield weapon. Three of the police officers were injured during that incident. So I think, in the context of that, regardless of what the police thought they might be walking into this time, they would take extreme extra precautions to make sure that none of their officers were injured and that they didn't underestimate the threat that they were going up against. I mean, the fact that there were automatic war battlefield weapons in apartments where they didn't expect them in Brussels, the capital of Belgium, I mean, just where we have these EU negotiations going on. This is happening in the suburbs right around there. So the police, it seems here, are taking absolutely no chances whatsoever.
And Nick, during that raid earlier this week, we do know that two suspects were taken into custody. I believe they were released. Is it likely that they provided any intelligence, given that we're seeing another raid today?
It's possible. When you look at this at face value, if the police release them so quickly, it does tend to indicate that the police had no legal reason to keep them, which again, without more information, it seems odd, given that they were in a building where there was a shootout. Subsequent, one of the men inside clearly had a weapon. At least one person had a weapon. We know some of the two men who got away had weapons as well. In a situation where the police used deadly firepower to bring the situation under control. So in a way, it seems odd that these men were freed so quickly, but under Belgian law, there is a finite period that they can be held for questioning. And as we have seen in other terror situations, apparent witnesses, have not talked. Generally, that would mean they would be kept for longer. So it's very hard to read this situation at the moment to know why they were released and did they provide information. If they'd had information and they passed it to the police, one would have thought the police would be concerned that if they were released, they might go and talk to friends and set off a chain of events that were going to make it harder for the police to get Salah Abdelslam and others. So understanding this, I think, is going to require more information, and the Belgian authorities, by and large, have been very effective in their desire to limit the amount of information that gets out, specifically so they can catch these terrorists, because they know that they watch the news and that they use the news to evade capture, and that anything that they can glean through watching the television, listening to the radio, reading the internet, whatever, is going to be to their advantage. So the Belgian authorities have been pretty effective in limiting the amount of information that gets released, which leaves us in the dark, but it leaves the terrorists in the dark too, and that's what the police are trying to do.
And given the number of raids we've seen police carry out in this neighbourhood of Molenbeek, you would think it would be counterintuitive for someone like Abdelslam to go back to this area. When we stand back and look at this, if he was in that apartment, if
the suppositions are correct, that he came back from Paris, he got to Brussels, he went to ground. How long had he been in the house in Forest that the police targeted on Tuesday? We don't know. But had he been hiding out there for some time? And if that premises is disrupted, and we know a lot of what the authorities have been doing with their arrests recently in Brussels have been to disrupt the networks, you know, with the number of arrests they've seen, this takes off the table potential safe houses and potential people that can help them out. So his options were perhaps limited by this.
OK, Nic Robertson in London, we appreciate that update. Thanks so much. And we will continue to follow this story. You are watching live pictures out of Molenbeek on the outskirts of Brussels, where a counter-terror raid is underway. We believe they're looking for Europe's most wanted man, Abdelslam. We will continue with our coverage in a moment.
This is CNN Breaking News.